believe we should make any contact with the head at all. Okay? And if we do, there's got to be an outcome. But if the ref misses it or doesn't penalise in the moment, right, because he's whatever, we can, as I said, that's the beauty of the system, that we can charge him the following day. So who's reffing the game now? Right? Is it the bunker? I mean, the bunker's there for support of the referees. But if the ref hasn't seen it or doesn't penalise it, they can pick it up tomorrow.
Is that a fair point?
Yeah, it is a fair point. He always makes a good point.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that when he, at the end of his press conference, he just said, "I've spoken enough." Just got up and left.
I love it where a
He has a little team behind him. His little team followed him out. I've spoken.
It is true. Back to his point. I think it was in the Broncos game where they went through a whole set of 6 and then went back down to the 20-metre line down the other end to give a penalty away. I think stoppages at that time are a little bit over the top. If they miss it, there is that chance opportunity to put the guys on report later on.
I don't know if this is the right time to be talking about it, because we'll have a look at the incident later. The only concern I have about, we all agree with what we're trying to do. The only one that hasn't sit well with me this weekend is Lachlan Burr and the tackle on James Tedesco. Now, we are a collision sport. We are a physical sport. Accidents are going to happen.
Yeah.
And I look at that incident, Lachlan Burr, I don't think he could have done anything else.
No. Yeah.
You know, if you have a look at the point of contact, it's down around his armpit, and obviously Teddy, comes in low, and the test we always apply to it: does it stand up with 10 minutes to go in a grand final? And that wouldn't sit well with me, because I don't think Lachlan Burr did anything wrong, apart from the fact contact was made with the head. I don't think that he.
Well, Graham Mannersley told us when we'll sit in that room, distinctly said, it doesn't matter if someone's falling. You need to be able to adjust and not hit them in the head. He didn't say that to the point where everyone should be sin bin either. And I'm a bit with you. Lachlan Burr's most probably the one right on the border. Although Tyson Gamble's was right on the border, but that was his second one.
To me, they're penalties and fines later on.
I can agree with that with Lachlan Burr.
I could cop it in a grand final with 10. Because when Lachlan Burr, that was game over. Yeah. The game finished there.
The thing about the Lachlan Burr, from my point of view, was Teddy was running amok through the middle of the ruck. So Lachlan Burr, as a front rower, had to sort of stick. He just come up and said, well, he was pretty aggressive in what he did, and the fact Teddy fell over meant it was going to hit him in the head. But on a whole game, where it sat in the game, I thought, well, you know what? If a bloke's going to destroy you through the middle, at some stage you've got to be able to stand up. And
we are going to have accidents. I think it's how we deal with those. To me, Lachlan Burr has made the tackle. Yes, there's contact, but they paid a heavy price. As I say, with the resulting penalty, I think they might have kicked the goal there, and that was the game right there. And once you take the contest out of the contest, that's where we get a little bit frustrated.
You've still got to be able to defend. I think what we're showing right now is that you need to learn how to play with 12 players. Yeah. This is going to be, and the accidental ones are also going to be sin bin as well. And I asked Victor Radley at half-time, I said, how was it out there with one player down? He said, I'm really disappointed that we let 2 tries in, and we've trained for this, and we should have done a better job while with 12 players.
You announced a crackdown prior to the commencement of Magic Round, which was any pressure, contact to the head, and also some foul play issues. First of all, what's been your response? Take out all the public criticism, commentary. There's some positive commentary as well. What's been your, take out on the opening few matches?
Yeah, so let me clarify a few things there. This hasn't been a recent crackdown. The Commission said at the start of the year there was a real focus on protecting the players and focusing on eliminating high shots and dangerous high tackles, and foul play for that matter. And following that, we saw an increase in charges. We saw the match review responding accordingly. But there were still too many high shots in the game. So 2 weeks ago, we spoke to the match officials, we spoke to all the clubs. We had written confirmation of this almost 10 days, two weeks ago. So we've been working on this throughout the season. We've been working on it particularly over the last couple of weeks. And again, this week we reminded all of the players and the coaches and the teams that there's no longer a place for dangerous high shots above the shoulder. So this is not something that's new. And we've been saying the increase in the use of the sin bin or the send-off will absolutely come into play. In sport, you can either administer or you can lead. The Commission are clearly taking a leadership position here, and our job is to make sure we implement on that. We want this game to be relevant, and there's a certain amount of arrogance that goes with, or complacency that goes with, thinking that as the world changes, we can just do the same thing. We have one of the fastest, most entertaining, toughest sports in the world, and all we're doing now is we're making sure that we are making it appropriately safe for our players.
I've been asked over the last 24 hours, 48 hours about the process. So a decision is made by the Commission. How does that decision work its way down to what actually takes place on the field?
Yeah, so the Commission is responsible for setting that policy, and once we understand what that policy is, it's our job as the management team to implement that. So there's been a series of communications that have gone out. We've been communicating with both match officials and with the clubs. Graham Annesley, our head of football, produced a detailed memo explaining exactly how these, and by the way, they're not new rules, how the existing rules are going to be enforced. And that was sent out in writing to all the clubs, and there's been several phone calls and conversations directly with clubs over the course of the last 10 days.
At what stage did we think it was acceptable to keep going back into a tackle count, 4 tackles backwards, to start going on decisions there, where obviously the bunker's becoming the major referee? The one part of the game that we try to do over the last 2 pre-seasons is speed it up, make it more exciting. Why are we now dulling it down by slowing the game down and having more time standing around waiting for the bunker to make decisions?
That's a fair point. I think we've got to get the balance right, between the referees on the field refereeing what's in front of them, but then also making sure that extreme cases are certainly catered for. And I think the point you make around how far you go back and how much impact you have on stopping the game is a really important one. And perhaps if you reflect back over the last 24 to 48 hours, maybe there are a few calls that were more minor in nature as opposed to significant in nature, and I think we'll get that right over time.
Well, this happened in round 4, and ended up going 4 tackles down and went back to that one tackle there where Mitch Kenny was a crusher tackle on one of the Manly players. And it started there, but from there it sort of stopped. But tonight, this weekend, if anything, I think that's hurt the weekend is this, going back in tackle counts more so than actually having people simming, because it's just made the game so stagnant.
I think everybody would be okay with things that are missed and picked up maybe later on, instead of holding that momentum. Wayne Bennett has come out very strongly and spoke about the attraction of our game is the momentum that it builds. And when we take the air out of the balloon, that's where it becomes frustrating.
Would you agree with that? I think most people accept eradicating head highs. It doesn't happen in union AFL. They don't accept it on any level. That's fine. But it's the element of it that slows the game down, that stops the entertainment factor, that almost goes against the rules you introduced to make the game more faster and free-flowing.
No, as I acknowledge, it's a good point. You've got to get the balance right, because it's easy to say we want to keep momentum and things get missed, they get missed, until it's your team and it's a significant issue, and it has had a significant impact on a player who might not be able to return to the field. So we've got to get that balance right between getting things right and using all of things available to us, and the momentum and the continuity and the speed of the game, which we love. Now, and I acknowledge the fact that that's probably something that we need to keep looking at and keep refining. And I don't think we've got all those calls right. I think we want to really focus on the bunker being involved when there's significant errors. And that's something that we'll work really hard on behind the scenes.
Do you think this will be similar? I guess you look at the spear tackle, shoulder charge, the crusher tackle, the punch. Do you think, all of those, there was massive uproar, this isn't our game, it'll never be the same, I'm handing back my jersey. Do you see that this will have the same outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a moment in time. And any time that you introduce change, there are always people that are resistant to it. We're humans. It's human nature. But we're doing this for the right reason. We're doing this so that the game will be relevant into the long term. We're doing this to protect the safety of our players, who are unbelievable athletes playing an incredibly physical game. And again, anyone who thinks that our game is losing the core of its fabric hasn't been to a game live, hasn't experienced Magic Round. This is an intense physical game, and we are talking about taking the responsible leadership position of eliminating the damage that can be done to dangerous head-high shots. I make no apologies for that, and I absolutely believe that the decision the Commission has made and the way we're being implementing this is right. But I'll also say, what do we know about our coaches and our teams? They're professional, they evolve, there's a learning curve, and they'll adapt. And the teams that adapt quicker than others will have a competitive advantage.
Trent Robinson spoke about that normally you might see 5 of an incident, they only saw a couple. The players are already adapting.
They're already adapting, and again, the ones that adapt quicker will have that advantage. And I think he summed it up perfectly. He said there were 2 high tackles in a game. Typically there would be 5.
Because of that, why do we come out with statements and we send messages out? Obviously what you're doing at the moment is you're just adjudicating the rules. You're not allowed to hit someone's head. So why do we need to come out and tell everyone and make a statement? Why don't the referees just do that? You know, they could have done it 15 years ago when cannonballs and chicken wings and all these things started to happen. And why don't they just do it instead of trying to appease everyone to say that, yeah, we told you we're about to do it? Because I think all you're really doing is acknowledging their other coaches. Now go and find a way to break it. Why don't you just do it instead of tell everyone we're going to do it?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a downside in communicating the way in which things are going to be done in advance. I mean, we don't certainly want anyone to be caught by surprise real time in the match. So
you're only adjudicating on the rules, though.
Yeah.
Not as though we're changing rules. You're only just coming down a bit stronger. So why don't they just come down a bit stronger without having to
publicise it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, absolutely. You make two good points. One is we didn't change the rules, but we are enforcing them in a much stronger way. And I mean, I disagree, Freddie. I think it's important to communicate the ways in which things are going to be interpreted. I think we'd be criticised if we weren't. I think the coaches and the clubs could have the excuse of saying, hey, we've been caught by surprise, we're going to have to adapt. I disagree on that one.
I'm sure you listen to opinion polls, and there are opinion polls done with the public. How is the perception of rugby league at the moment in the community?
Well, one of the benefits of my job is getting feedback, and I get it fairly regularly. But I also walk around and chat to fans and chat to friends and chat to, obviously you guys and everyone that's close and loves this game. I mean, I think we've had an amazing 2 days. The footy is always going to be unpredictable. You're always going to have great games, and you're going to have games with bigger margins. But I think, anecdotally, I think everybody supports the stance that we're taking. I think when you lose or when your team loses, it's upsetting and it's easy to look for, reasons to account for that. But I think we have support, and I think people around, I think sometimes, Freddie, you made this point earlier, which is spot on. Sometimes the media take a position, and rugby league, I think it does this unfortunately too often, takes a position that looks for what's wrong rather than what's right. But I think the fans accept what we're doing, and I think they're supportive of it, and I think the fans out here have had a great 2 days.
Well, the game was better 40 years ago, we know that. You've been in the job just to finish up a little while now. Is it all you expected it to be?
A little while. It feels like a couple of rugby league years. Yeah, rugby league years. I mean, sport brings people together, and I love what I do, and I work with great people. But still, the passion that people have for our game means that you don't take any feedback personally because you know where it's coming from. And I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing. There's a lot to do, but we have a great commission and we have a great chairman, Peter V'landys, and it's an absolute, it's great to work with the clubs and everyone in the game, including you guys. So, yes, I'm enjoying it.
As Magic Round continues, let's head to Brisbane right now. Brad Fittler joining us. Freddie, thanks so much for joining us on Sports Sunday. Interesting round, Magic Round, for all sorts of reasons, but we want to talk about this crackdown on the head-high contact. It's created some chaos. Is it the right thing to do to really clamp down on such a showpiece weekend as this?
Yeah, well, I think it is. I think, without a doubt, the game doesn't reach its potential without getting rid of any sort of headshots like we've seen over the last couple of years. I feel if the NRL did their job a couple of weeks ago, and they could have gone through this process a little bit easier. But the fact is, this, without a doubt, Magic Round will be known for the coming down on head contact and sin binning, and I think it's the best way for the league to go. It's a bit of a shame for the people who are here, not so much for the players that were sin bin, because at the end of the day, there wasn't that many really when you consider how many tackles there are in a game. But the slowing up of the game was the real problem, going back 4 tackles at different stages to try to get it 100% right, which that's one of the things the league and the commission and the people running the game need to understand is it's never going to be 100% right. So if we miss the occasional one, we can't lose the momentum of the game, because that's the thing that makes our game great.
So, Brad, Peter V'landys has come out and said it's really short-term pain for long-term gain. You're at the stadium, you're speaking to fans. Do the fans agree? We've heard lots from the players and the coaches about how they don't like this new rule, but is it really affecting the fans' experience of the game?
I don't think so, Liz. I think the commentators more so than everyone are the ones in uproar at the moment, because we all come from an era where we think the game was so much greater 10 years ago and 20 years. It all depends on how old we are. So I feel like it's more the commentators more than the people. I think the people just love being here. There's 120,000 people over 3 days. It's been absolutely spectacular. Being in the stadium, the atmosphere's been awesome. The games have been okay, although the Roosters-Cowboys game yesterday really got everyone on the edge of their seat, and hopefully there's some great games today. So I feel like it's more the commentators and the people that are paid to comment on the game that are more in uproar than the fans.
Freddie, thanks so much for joining us. The one we're looking out for today is 3 o'clock on Channel 9, the Storm and the Dragons. Enjoy that and enjoy your Sunday in Brisbane.
Guys, let's get straight into it. Peter V'landys certainly made his mark, and through the course of the season, a number of rule changes, a number of changes to interpretations. This has been an interesting weekend as well. The coaches, how do you think that they're faring under this new director?
Well, I think it's mixed, isn't it? We saw Wayne Bennett and Trent Robinson come out and defend Peter V'landys last night. But obviously Ricky and Trent Barrett were unhappy with the changes this weekend. Look, I think it's mixed, but he hasn't lost me, Pete. I think he's made the right call. I think, given what we know about concussion around the world at the moment, the impact it's having on sport, I think they've got to do this. They've got to stamp out contact with the head. If we talk about that one in particular. The 6 again thing, I'm a bit underwhelmed on, but certainly on contact with the head, I think he's made the right call.
So you've given him your imprimatur.
Yeah, he's got the green light for me. That's big. It's big.
Every sport, though, in the world is changing. Like, look at the NFL, look at the basketball the way it was 30 years ago, ice hockey, all these contact sports now, they're all changing to evolve with the times, rugby union. Yeah. So I understand, like, it was a shock to the system for a lot of coaches, but to be fair to the NRL, they did send this out 2 weeks ago, and the problem was the referees didn't enforce it. And the reminder was sent out again this week, to be honest, as a reinforcement of what was sent out a week earlier. So I get where Peter V'landys is coming from. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. This was 2 weeks to actually get their heads around it, and now we're seeing the repercussions.
Can I say this time? So I think we will see recalibration, won't we? I mean, we've got the speakers going off here in the distance. Good timing. But look, I think with Peter V'landys, he's the greatest administrator I've seen in rugby league since Ken Arthurson and John Quayle. He's done a great job so far. I'm not totally convinced about this rule yet. I agree about safety in the game. I think welfare is vitally important. We all agree upon that. But to see 6 reports for the Broncos on Friday night and then 1 player out of the 6 gets charged or will be suspended. Tyson Gamble, two times he's on report, goes to the sin bin, and he's free to play this week. So I think we need to be careful about overstepping the mark, because for flowing the game, we need 3 things: less penalties, less stoppages, and less referee intervention. If we get that right, rugby league will flow.
And that is the recalibration that Trent Robinson was talking about. Now, it's just come through that Josh Papali'i, 3 weeks if he takes the guilty plea, 5 weeks if he challenges and loses. Are you comfortable with the action to send him off and the result of the amount of time on the sideline?
I'll tell you one thing, Ricky won't be happy. He said after the game, send off sufficient. There was no need for a suspension. He's now out, it looks like minimum 3 weeks, out of Origin.
Origin, absolutely.
It's a huge blow for you Queenslanders. I know you're adopted Queenslander now, Pete.
I'm on the phone to Greenie right now. I'm ringing Greenie right now. Pick someone, Greenie.
It's a massive blow for Queensland. Huge blow for, obviously, Canberra, who are struggling and obviously got away with, desperately needed that win yesterday, but massive for Queensland. I mean, already missing Lindsay Collins, now Josh Papali'i.
But I will say,
out.
it's a good decision, though. I think
it's
it was
a
the right
decision.
call. Well, look, we've seen 15 send-offs in the last 10 years, so 1.5 a season. It hasn't been over the top. But if they're going to enforce this crackdown, then that was the right decision. I think it was a good call. We need to protect their heads. So
that's the standard, Pete, now. If that's a send-off going forward, we can't be going back and changing in what we're looking at. Like 10 minutes in the bin is 10 minutes in the bin. If that's the standard for send-off, we're going to see a lot of people in the bin.
Well, that's the important thing. They maintain the consistency now still, because that's always been the complaint, hasn't it? They crack down one weekend and then it drops off. And it'll, as Robbo said, and you said, it'll recalibrate. But with Papali, that's the standard now. That's the minimum for a send-off.
Do we still ask you, do we need to actually have a 5-minute sin bin for... We saw a lot of sin binnings for repeat infringements and 6 again things. Is that too harsh of a penalty to have 10 in the bin for that?
Well, it is a harsh penalty, which means you've got to get it right. I'm not a big fan of the 5-minute sin bin, because all of a sudden we get back to... Now, everything old is new again. We've had the 5 minutes in, and we weren't quite sure, is it a 5, is it a 10? And then you've got that conjecture around
But you're never going to get complete consistency, because you've got humans involved. Where humans are involved,
I understand that.
You are going to get some inconsistency.
But what we have to understand is that 10-minute sin bin, games are won and lost in that 10-minute period. Sides can score 3 tries and the game's over. We've got to get that right. And I don't want to jump on the high horse again. The Lachlan Burr one, for me, was a penalty and a fine, because basically the game as a contest was over.